Welcome everybody, Film Fan 108 here to my Blu-ray pick-up video for August of 2020. I know it's late, but better late than never. And as you guys can see, this is quite the interesting stack, dare I say. Very, very interesting indeed. So, how about we get to it with the first title that I picked up, and that is none other than Creepshow 2. Look at this. This is very nice. Arrow Edition Creepshow 2, by the way. Limited Edition Creepshow 2 at that. So, now I got this through the UK Arrow Edition. Now, this did have a limited edition that came out in the States. However, when it happened, it was hugely in demand. People wanted it big time. And I was kind of like, do I want it? Do I not want it? And by the time I kind of decided that I possibly would be interested in it, they were all gone at that point. I mean, people were just buying it up like crazy. And it quickly became out of print. And so I just figured, you know what, I guess that I'm just one of the unlucky ones, and I'm never going to chance to really get the limited edition, so I sort of resigned myself to that. Until Arrow Video said, oh, hey, by the way, we're doing a limited edition version in the UK, and I was like, okay, this has to be mine. I've got to try to get this thing, and thankfully, I very much did, man. And look at this. This is great artwork, man. Look at this. So cool. That... so nice. And on the inside, you also get this really great art here. Oh, the wonderful, classy host there looking at the screen. Very nice. Awesome. And it also, by the way, comes with a booklet as well, which is very nice, too. It sort of has one of these sort of untold stories that they were going to put into the movie but never got a chance to. They have that. Very, very, very nice. And on the back there, really great picture of George Romero and Stephen King. Very nice. Love this edition. This edition is great, man. Now, as far as the movie itself, so Creepshow is incredibly popular. It's one of the best horror anthologies of all time. It is, bar none, that's a fact. And it made a decent amount of money, a certain amount of money where people were like, okay, this is sequel time now, right? We're gonna do a sequel. And George Romero really didn't want any part of it because it's not like he didn't love the Creepshow world. It felt like, look, I've already done everything I can do with Creepshow. I really don't want to go back and do it. I've said everything I needed to say as a filmmaker. So he handed the reins off to one of his buddies. And look, it's not as good as the original Creepshow. That's for sure. So I want to point that out right away. Here, I believe you only get 3 stories instead of the 5 stories that you get from the original Creepshow. So there is less there. I think the horror aspects are better in the original Creepshow movie. But that doesn't mean to discount this film, because there's a lot of really great things with this film, and despite all of the issues that they had producing this film, making it, the fact that the budget was not as good as they could be, they had to cut 2 or 3 stories that they wanted to put in here. So, yes, it's a lesser movie, but it still has that really great Creepshow charm that really makes it a worthwhile entry. I mean, you have the first story, which I really love, which is the one with the Indian, and I love it because it always kind of reminds me of, I used to, back in the day when I was a kid, I used to go to this sort of Halloween shop called Switz's. And what they used to do is they used to have a guy dress up as Dracula, like full-on Dracula, right? So he would do that, and he would be in the coffin, but he was like sort of a mime or somebody who could stand completely still, and you thought that it was a prop or something, that it wasn't actually a real person. And then what would happen was that they would actually eventually, when you turn around the corner, the guy was gone. Like the coffin is empty. You're like, oh my god, where the fuck's the guy? Like you're like, wait a minute. And then I remember the statue trying to like stalk my mother and trying to kill my mother, and I would say, no, no, get away from my mom, and but that's what that kind of story evoked. Like, oh my god, like don't ever screw or piss off a statue that you might not think is alive, because it probably is very, very real, man. I love that. I really love the second one so much, which is these stupid teenage partiers, and they're on a boat, and there's this weird sort of like almost like black goo, and you realize that it's some sort of weird I don't know, alien entity or whatever that is swallowing people up. Like I love that one. And the third one is really great as well, as this woman who's very self-centered and not a very nice person killing somebody on the road, a hitchhiker, and them sort of getting their just desserts. I mean, there's some really great lessons to be learned through Creepshow 2, some really great horror elements, and at the end of the day, the movie is just fun. And I think for me, horror anthologies, yes, they have to have a certain scary element to them, but they have to be fun. And I think this is just a fun time. Yes, it's a lesser flick in a lot of ways, but you know, do I ever think Creepshow 2 would have ever outdone Creepshow 1? No, but I do think that Creepshow 2 is a great companion piece to Creepshow 1, to continuing the fun, continuing that, you know, that sort of great pulpy entertainment that you would get from those type of comic books, like the EC stuff. So yeah, I do think it's really fun. I think the acting is cheesy, but also in times really well done, very atmospheric. I love the special effects by K and B, whether it's the sort of black goo little entity there, whether it's the actual Indian statue or the dead hitchhiker. I mean, there's elements that you're like, ooh, it's kind of gruesome, and you're kind of like, oh, but it's like I said, it's pulpy, good fun, man. And when I want a horror anthology, that's what I'm hoping for, and that's what I got with Creepshow 2. So I'm very happy with this, guys. Very happy indeed. Now, it comes with a few interesting features here. It comes with a audio commentary from Michael Gornick, who was the director of Creepshow 2 in general. And it's a really fascinating commentary, because he talks about everything from working with all the actors to the difficulties with New World Pictures and how they cut stories because of the budget, and just how much of a rushed production this really was, and how many difficulties he had dealing with this film, but how he kind of looks back and still really enjoys the experience of making this movie and the movie itself, which is really great, man. You also get here, you get a brand new interview with one of the actors. You get an interview with the screenwriter George A. Romero. Now, of course, this was an old school one when he was still alive, but it's really great to sort of hear his thoughts about Creepshow 2. I really enjoyed that, man. You also get Howard Berger talking about his mentor Rick Baker, image gallery, trailers, and TV spots. You get an archival featurette on the special effects of Creepshow 2, and a bunch of other stuff, man. I mean, it's a really great limited edition. I own the Scream Factory edition of Creepshow 2, which is, well, of Creepshow 1, I should say, which is really well done, and now I have this edition of Creepshow 2, and honestly, that's all I really need, guys, because there is a Creepshow 3 out there, and I would highly suggest to each and every one of you that Creepshow 3 is... No, do not ever watch Creepshow 3, because Creepshow 3 is a full-on turd burger. It is really bad, man. So, if you're looking for Creepshow fun, yes, Creepshow is the classic, But Creepshow 2 is a really great add-on to the fun that you'll get from the first Creepshow, and it's just great fun stories and cool special effects, and it's just a fun time, man. And I really enjoy it, man. Creepshow, they don't make them like this anymore. Wish they did, but so good. Creepshow 2. And the next title that I picked up, guys, is one from Shout Select. It's an older title, but one that I wanted to get actually for a long time in the collection. But to be fair, I've kind of been always putting it on the back burner, and I'm glad I finally got it. And that is none other than 3 o'clock high. Yeah, look at this. Love that art, man. Love that art. So great, man. Ah, so good. Jerry Mitchell just bumped into Buddy Revell. Now Jerry isn't thinking about math or English because at 3 o'clock, he's history. Oh, love it so much, man. Now, I have been wanting to get this for a while. And as you guys know, you guys are so used to it at this point. There's so many movies out there that you want to get, and sometimes you're like, well, I'll hold off on this title, and then I'll sort of, pick up this one instead, and then you sort of go back, and then you think, well, I can still hold off on that title, and I'll get something else. And you keep pushing it back and further until you realize that, oh shit, this thing is kind of probably going out of print soon. And that was the same thing with 3 o'clock high, because I kept on sort of having it on my Amazon wish list, and then one day I was thinking about getting it from Amazon, and I realized the price had skyrocketed from like $13.99 to like it jumped like $30, and I was like, what the really? This? And that's when I realized, okay, this thing is probably going out of print soon. And I was like, I don't want to pay that money for this movie, and I can't get it from anything else for a lesser money. So I went on Diabolic, and thankfully they had one copy left of 3 o'clock high, and I was like, click. I was like, I was wanting it so bad at that point, because I'm like, oh man, this thing might be going out of print, and if it does, I am so screwed, and I don't want to pay the crazy, insane eBay seller prices. Not going through that route, guys. So I decided, why not get it? And I definitely did. Finally pulled the trigger. And this is a really great movie, man. It really is kind of one of those movies that if you saw it back in the day, it's kind of always stuck with you and you loved it. But I don't think a lot of people really know too much about 3 o'clock high. Basically, yes, it is about Jerry Mitchell, and this guy he's not the popular guy, but, he's part of, this news, high school team that he's part of, and, he's friends with a lot of people in the school, and there's this new guy that comes to the school, Buddy, and basically this guy is trouble from the very get-go, because everybody hears stories of like, oh, I heard he killed 2 people, or I heard he poured boiling hot water on this one, and he punched a teacher, and all these rumors are circulating around. He doesn't want to be touched, and so Jerry is like, you know what, let me try to interview this guy for the paper, and that way, look, maybe get his story out there. You're just trying to, think it would be kind of cool to do it. And he accidentally touches Buddy, and, yeah, it doesn't go well, because Buddy does not want to be touched, and he basically says, look, man, you touched me, I don't want to be touched, I don't want to be touched, and now, at 3 o'clock after school, I'm gonna beat the shit out of you, man. I'm gonna teach you a goddamn lesson. And so, basically, it's Jerry's journey through that day of literally being completely nervous and out of his mind and doing everything he possibly can to get out of having to fight this guy. And all the fun and hilarity that sort of follows from there. I love this movie, man. I think it's vastly underrated, vastly underappreciated. I love the acting here. I love just the panicky nervousness of Jerry as 3 o'clock is getting closer and closer. Buddy, who really doesn't give two shits, man. He really doesn't care, man. And he's just like, you know what, dude, I'm just gonna, no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, I'm going to basically, just beat the living snot out of you. And I just love it. It's it's a really great sort of pressure cooker comedy, I guess I should say, because you at points you're nervous for Jerry. At points you're sort of relieved. It's like, oh, he's finally out of this, and then something crazy happens that you're like, oh my god, man, like God, what are the fucking odds of that happening? And just all the nuttiness, and then seeing him kind of gain his confidence at the same time. For somebody like me, and I'm not gonna lie, man, I was bullied from second grade all the way through high school. And, I I never got the courage to face up to my bullies. I never really did, man. I just took it and I dealt with it and I moved on. And I was never somebody who confronted them. Maybe I should have. But I never really did. And watching 3 O'Clock High was always something of like, you know, that was me. That was who I was. And seeing this guy eventually find his courage sort of made me wish that I could eventually do the same thing. And it kind of, I related to the movie. I was kind of inspired at the same time. And I just thought the comedy and everything was brilliant. It's a great teen comedy. And it just, to me, sort of was a really great movie for me growing up. And I think for a lot of people it was the same way too. So is it like the classic teen comedy? No, it's not a classic by any means, but I really think it's one that's really hilarious and one that I think a lot of people might have missed out on, but need to definitely check out, man. And this is very interesting because there's some really great special features here. There's an interview with the director, there's an interview with the screenwriters, an interview with the costume designer, and an audio commentary with the director as well. And what's interesting about the director is that he made his short film, and then when he made his short film, he actually ended up getting a call from Steven Spielberg. And Steven Spielberg's company wanted to work with him. And he was blown away, and he's like, what ideas do you want? But this, and he's telling them, and they're like, well, we're not really interested in some of the ideas that you have, but we do have this script. And it was a script for 3 O'Clock High, and at first he didn't want to do it. He was like, a teen comedy, and I don't know if I really want to do this. And he sort of declined Steven Spielberg. Like, and you have to remember at this point, Steven Spielberg is like major filmmaker Steven Spielberg, man. And, that night he went home and he ended up actually kind of talking about it to himself and with other people. And he says, what the hell did I do? I just declined an offer from Steven Spielberg. What the fuck? Like he literally the next day goes into Steven Spielberg's office, literally is like, "Oh my, I'm so sorry, I screwed up. Is the script still available?" And Steven Spielberg's like, "Yeah, of course it is. If it's if you want it, it's yours." And so he took it, and he even says that he took a lot of things from different filmmakers and different ideas, and that really he's never made anything that's nearly as popular as this movie is. And he still really loves the movie despite some of his faults. He really does. And it's great that a filmmaker still loves his older works. Some filmmakers kind of shy away from that crap, but this guy does not. It was really great, man. So this movie is a really awesome film. Shout Selected a really great job. And You know what, man? As far as I'm concerned, I'm so glad to finally have this in the collection. It's underrated, as I said, underappreciated, but it's one that I think if you love teen comedies, this one should definitely be on the must-see list because it's really that good, man. Not half bad. Finally in the collection. Thank God. 3 o'clock high. And the next title that I picked up, guys, and this is a holiday horror flick. No, it's not a holiday horror classic. It's one of the newer ones that, for me, is a long time in the making. I mean, come on, man. There's so many Christmas movies and so many Christmas slasher flicks. How about we have a little love for the Jewish people, goddammit, with Hanukkah? Oh, look at that. Prepare for a festival of frights. Oh, baby. And of course, with the slipcover here with good old Sid Haig on the slip right there. Very nice. A limited edition slipcover. Very, very nice indeed. And on the inside, you get this wonderful art right here. Look at that. Oh, so good. In fact, the above is a great quote for the horror flick. From dreidel to the grave. Oh man, I love it. Oh, I love it so much, man. Okay, look, I love holiday horror slasher flicks, man. Okay, you got Christmas Evil, you got Silent Night, Deadly Night, Santa Sleigh. I mean, hell, you got a shitload of them, man. And as a Jewish guy, I kept on thinking, okay, where is the Jewish horror flicks, right? I mean, come on. I mean, they practically write themselves, but we never see any. And I'm thinking, okay, I guess a Jewish man like me is just never gonna get any holiday horror love for my wonderful holidays. Well, finally, somebody decided we're way past due on this. Let's put this sucker out, man. And man, okay, so this has a really great cast of people, man. Uh, Charles Fleischer, P.J. Souls, Caroline Williams, Dick Miller, and of course Sid Haig. Now, basically, this movie is about these group of young adults who are all Jewish and they love to party and hang out and everything. And there is a killer that is stalking them who is also Jewish, and he is basically picking them off one by one during their holiday because they are not being proper Jews. They are not following the rules of Judaism, and he is taking them out one by one because of it. And it's kind of great because it's sort of they sort of set it up at the beginning of a really great sort of flashback sequence with Sid Haig of sort of him being the Hanukkiller. And by the way, man, that's a great name. The Hanukkiller is awesome, man. I love that name so much, dude. And sort of he was going to sacrifice his son, and he doesn't get a chance to because the cops find him and kill him before that happens. But the kid grows up and sort of leaning in his father's footsteps. So the Hanukkiller is coming back to strike yet again, but in a different form. And it's so great, man. Okay, because you guys don't really know it, but being Jewish, there's certain traditions and there's certain language and certain wording that you just, as a Jewish person, you're just used to it. You're used to those things, and you're used to those traditions. And this movie sort of, it pokes fun at a lot of that stuff, and I God love them for it because I thought the kills were pretty cool. Yes, they don't show off the kills as much as I would like them to. A lot of them are just like quick, like you kind of imply that something is going to happen, and maybe you might see a little bit of the aftermath, but they don't really go into it. I think that was more of a budget thing than anything else because this is a low budget horror flick. But I love the imposing Hanukkiller. I love sort of the slutty, young adult chicks here. I love some of the comedy relief. It kind of reminded me of certain characters from like the Friday the 13th movies. Like, okay, there's the jokester, there's the slut, there's the jock, there's the token black guy. Like they're all there, man. And I just loved playing on the themes of Judaism and playing on Hanukkah as a theme to kill people. Like I always thought that was a really great concept, man. And and I thought, God, why hasn't anybody taken advantage of this? Like people take advantage of Christmas slashers and horror flicks all the time, but Hanukkah never gets that type of love, and it desperately needed it, man. And this thing is great, man. And also, it was so great to see Sid Haig in this for just the brief opening sequence that we get to see him in. Man, he is just intense and imposing even when this guy is rail thin and he's obviously just weak as hell, but he still gives off a great performance, man. Seeing him in this, seeing Dick Miller here as well. Dick Miller is really great in this role, man. He's awesome here. And seeing PJ Souls in a comedic role and even in a very intense scene with Caroline Williams. I mean, seeing all these horror fan favorites in this movie really warmed my heart. And again, seeing a horror classic actor like Sid Haig one more time, man, is really well worth it, dude. Honestly, is it the perfect slasher movie? No, unfortunately not. I mean, it's got a lot of issues. It's got some pacing problems, and it's got some editing issues. And I wish the kills were more graphic, and you would see them. And there are things here. But that being said, as a Jewish man, as a guy who has never gotten any sort of love whatsoever from any of his holidays being put into a horror flick, this warms my heart in a big bad way, man. Honestly, it does. I'm not gonna lie, man. I was literally like when I got this in the mail, I was like, oh, I was giddy, man. I was like, finally, my people get some goddamn love, man. Oh, wow, this is great. This is great. I don't know if they're ever gonna make any other Jewish horror flicks ever again, but if they don't, I at least have one in the collection now. One for my people, god damn it. Oh lord. So you get some good special features here. You do get an audio commentary from the writer director and the producer and a couple of the stars as well, and they talk about the filmmaking process, the script, how them being Jewish influenced the movie, some of the actors and what they brought to it. Really really great audio commentary. You also get a final wrap. They show off you know a last day of filming for Sid Haig and Dick Miller, which is really nice as well. Behind the scenes footage, a full offensive music video, deleted scenes and outtakes, bloopers, an original 2012 teaser short, which is kind of crazy to think that this movie is coming out in 2020 and they did the original teaser back in 2012. So they've taken a long time to get this thing made and working their ass off to. So God bless them that they finally got this thing done, man. And a TV menorah collection, which, as a Jewish, man, menorahs, are kind of my thing. So, yeah, dude, let me tell you something. I really hope that this sparks a whole generation of of Hanukkah slasher movies, Jewish horror flicks. We need them, man. Literally, almost every holiday has been done. St. Patrick's Day and Valentine's Day and July 4th and Christmas and hell, there's even stuff for Thanksgiving for Christ's sake. I mean, there's literally almost everything out there. And I thought, wow, the one thing that hasn't been done yet is Hanukkah for goodness sake. And I'm like, okay, when is that gonna happen? And finally did, man. This is one for me. This is one for me and my people. I know all you Christian lovers, all you Christmas, horror flick lovers might not get into this, but as a Jewish man, you bet your ass I do, man. God damn it. Finally, we got a Hanukkah horror flick. Well deserved. Finally, man. Only took us God knows how many fucking decades, man. Jesus. Better late than never. Well, definitely great flick. And the Hanukkiller, hope we get to see him in the future. Very nice, man. A well worth title, horror title, and holiday slasher flick. Well worth putting in the collection by far, man. For me and my people. Hanukkah. And the next title that I picked up, guys, is one from Dark Force Entertainment, along with Code Red, and that is none other than Insect. Oh, look at that. Oh, that's a great slip, man. I love that. With this here, this actually glows in the dark. When you turn it off, it actually glows in the dark, which is really cool. Great slip. Now, it's called Insect, but it also is called by another name as well, and that is Blue Monkey, also. Very nice inner cover there, very cool. They breed, they hatch, they kill. Maybe it's just a phase they're going through. Very, very nice Insect, baby. Oh, that great B-movie bug cheese. So this movie is basically about well, it starts off like this older guy basically gets, I don't know, pricked by a flower or something like that, and what ends up happening, or some sort of bug, and he ends up going to the hospital, and what happens is that he's not feeling so hot and he's not feeling so well, and basically there's something that comes out of him that is not natural to come out of a human body whatsoever. And through some crazy experiment accidents, it ends up actually growing and starting to kill and starting to procreate and create other insects. And before it's too late, with the help of some of the medical staff and a cop that is stuck in the building, they have to defeat this bug and all of the goddamn larvae and other insects that are crawling around this goddamn hospital, man. Oh, Lord, oh, Lord, oh, Lord, man. Look, it's so interesting because I love good, like, killer animal movies, whether it's like killer sharks or killer bears or killer crocodiles, whatever it is, man. The bug genre, sort of the killer huge giant bugs genre, was really done mainly in sort of the 1950s and the 1960s. It was sort of an answer to sort of the A-bomb and sort of you know the sort of the fact of nuclear radiation and what it would do to our bodies and what it would do to the insects. Things like Godzilla grew out of that, and other B movie bug movies like them, and a lot of other stuff. And over the course of time, that genre sort of kind of died a little bit. There were some that came out every now and again, but it wasn't very prevalent. This is one of the ones that came out in that time frame. And look, Insect it's all kinds of cheese, man. It is truly B-movie cheese. I mean, the insects themselves are kind of cool, but kind of cheesy at the same time. The effects are not exactly the most top-notch special effects you're ever gonna see in your goddamn life. But it's not outright terrible either. But it's very ridiculous and sometimes pretty goddamn fake. You gotta really open up your imagination at times, man. But they try their best, man. I mean, the characters are likable. I like that. Steve Railsback, who plays the cop, is awesome here. I love Steve Railsback. He's a great guy, goddamn actor, man. And he did a great job with playing this cop, having to be tough but sympathetic at the same time. I think he told that line pretty well, man. I love sort of the medical staff. One of the chicks that kind of is his love interest. You also get the typical stupidity in these type of horror flicks where the nurse and the scientists are like, oh well, we'll just go have sex in this sort of back room area where all the weird like fluids and liquids are. Why? I don't know. Does that get people hot and heavy? I didn't think a hospital would get people hot and heavy, but I guess it does. And then you have other perils of like kids in the hospital, a pregnant woman. You have all these other things, but it all comes down to the bugs and the horror of the bugs, and they do a pretty decent job with that. I love the kills with the insects. I love all the like sort of the goo and sort of the dripping stickiness and the goopy blood. Like all of it is pretty fun and pretty cheesy, but it's done in sort of a half serious, half tongue in cheek kind of way, man. It takes sort of the world of the 80s and tries to mix it with the old school B movie times of sort of the 50s. Does it completely melt together? Not exactly, but I gotta tell you, man, it's hella fun. It really honestly is. And if nothing else, I can say that I own a big, gigantic bug movie in the collection. It's not the first one, actually, because this movie actually reminds me of something I watched not too long ago, which is Dead Ant. And Dead Ant is really cool. Uh, It's it's not. I don't think Dead Ant is as cool as Insect is, because I think Insect is really cool. It's got like you're battling these insects with like lasers and weird laser beams and they're in this dark dank area with like the larvae hanging, and it's like it's kind of cool, man. I mean now that I think about it more, it's actually really cool, actually more cool than I give it credit for. But it's actually really fun, man. It really honestly is, and I'm glad that Dark Forest put this out, because I wouldn't have known about it otherwise if it wasn't for that, man. Plus it comes with a really great slip, which I love my slips. What can I tell you, man? Now, really, you get no major special features here. Yeah, you get a brand new transfer and trailers, but you don't get any interviews, commentaries, or anything like that. I wish we would have gotten a commentary from some of the cast, maybe an interview from Steve Railsback if they could have gotten to them, possibly, or transfer old features over. I would have loved to have seen it, but look, the fact that we have the movie is great. And look, I love those cheesy 80s horror flicks. I love them, man, because there's something about the old school special effects. There's something about, the gooiness and the stickiness, and even if it's cheesy, seeing some sort of fake flying insect coming at you, there's something about it that kind of warms my heart of like, yeah, man, this is back in the day when like you didn't have the CGI, you didn't have the quick fix stuff, and the old school practical effects really sort of make it even more fun than it normally would be, man. So Insect is really fun, really great, and if you've never got into some bug horror, there's quite a lot of it out there. And who knows, maybe you can start with Insect. I'm not too big of a fan of bugs, but this one had a lot of fun with. Insect. And the next pickup that I got, guys, is actually some Scream Factory love. And that is none other than the collector's edition release of 13 Ghosts. Look at that great looking cover, man. That great slip with all the ghosts right there in the house. So good. Really nice, man. And then the theatrical art right here. Love that art so much. So good, man. So good, man. And my God, man, this movie takes me back, man. I watched this in a movie theater. This thing came out in 2001. God, if you really think about it, next year, this thing's gonna be 20 years old. Holy shit. God damn, I'm old. Man, good. Eesh. And it's a really interesting movie because this movie was released by Dark Castle Entertainment. Now, back in the day, Dark Castle was this sort of off branch of Warner Brothers. And they were putting out a lot of old school horror flicks that, were directed by William Castle, but gave them more of a modern day twist. They did the House on Haunted Hill remake, which was really great. And then doing this as well, which I found out later was actually another remake of another William Castle haunted house flick as well. I'm like, okay, very, very unique and interesting, giving it sort of this updated modern take. Some remakes are really good, other remakes are, frankly, shit. But this isn't half bad. Now, it's basically about this family that's lost their wife, mother of the family, and they're really just down on the dumps and depressed, and, life's not really going their way. And an attorney comes in one day and says, oh, by the way, you have inherited this house from your uncle who has recently passed away. And they go to this house, and this house it's gorgeous, but it's so elaborate because it's not like any normal house you've ever seen before. It's glass, all glass practically, and it has these writings on actually all of the windows, these weird writings, and you're like, what is going on here? And you realize that they have become sacrifices for this ritual to happen to bring all of these evil ghosts together, and other secrets that will follow from it. I gotta admit, man, when I first saw this movie way back in the day, way back in 2001, I was not a fan of this movie. I literally left the theater and I was just really disappointed. I just did not really care for the movie. And I thought, oh man, this thing is that's really not good, man. And I just kind of forgot about it for a really long time. And then I don't know. There was one October or one time where it was maybe playing on something, and I decided, what the hell, might as well. And rewatching it, I liked it more. And I think, back in 2001, I was 18 years old, 17, 18 years old. And so, I had watched a lot of horror flicks at that point already, but I wasn't as much of a horror aficionado as I would become the years following. And I sort of became, I understood the genre more, I understood things, and rewatching it a second time, it became a better experience for me. And I think it's a really well-worthy movie as far as sort of the new school horror flicks go. First of all of the ghosts, by the way, they're all great. The designs are really cool on them. I think the actors do a really great job. For me, one of my favorites, honestly, is really either this dude right here or really the creepy naked chick. like both of them are really, really great, man. But I really like the designs of them. I like how they use the ghost, how really brutal they are. I also really love the acting here as well. From F. Murray Abraham, who plays a really great bad guy, to Matthew Lillard, who, man, Matthew Lillard was, at this point, it was like 2001, so he was really on a huge sort of kick at this point. He had done Scream, and he was sort of one of the big guys in Hollywood. He is like all over the place in this movie. He is sort of he's the audience, but in a lot of ways he's just sort of manic, man. He's kind of like, come on, man, I hate when they do that, and he's just always kind of over the top, man. And that's just Matthew Lillard in general, but it plays well in the movie. Tony Shalhoub, which by the way, Tony Shalhoub has never really done many movies. This is one of the only times that I believe Tony Shalhoub has actually done a horror flick in a lot of ways. But he was great here too. He's not the best part of the movie, but he's a good anchor. And also Shannon Elizabeth as well. Talk about a staple of like late 90s, early 2000s, man. Just like Matthew Lillard. Like she came off of American Pie and then kept on doing all these other, popular flicks. And she's in here as well. She's pretty cool here too, man. There's a lot of good actors in this piece. The acting can be a little cheesy, a little over the top, but for a movie like this, it kind of plays well. I love the special effects here. I love, as I said, the special effects of the actual ghosts themselves, I think is really cool. I love the design of the house. I think the house is just amazing. How it just looks like it's almost like a puzzle piece. Like in some ways, like it'll turn on itself, glass turns into another glass, and then it'll open up another area for somebody else to go into. It'll crush you. It holds the ghost at bay. It's really just the design of it is, man, really fascinating. I just really do enjoy this movie now, many years later, and it's kind of interesting because I don't think I don't think horror in the early 2000s was particularly great. I really don't think it was. I think it was sort of like, it was not terrible, but I think the early 2000s unfortunately, it had a lot of lesser horror flicks. If you really think about it, 90s horror was so much better, 80s horror was. Even now, we're getting a really great renaissance of horror. But I think in the early 2000s, it unfortunately wasn't as good as it could have been. But I do think that movies like 13 Ghosts was really fantastic for the time that it was made in. And I think out of the early 2000s, this is probably one of the better horror flicks to come out. I mean, it's definitely imaginative. I mean, put it that way. It's not. I think the thing with this horror movie, to be honest with you guys, is that it's very quick. It's very quick horror. It doesn't linger. Like, there's certain horror that lingers. This one has very quick editing style. The attacks are quick and they go fast and they're in your face. And, some people like more lingering horror that it takes its time. Other people like very fast paced and quick and easy horror. I like both. This is more of the quick and easy path, but I still think there's a lot of really effective moments in here, which is really great too, man. I hadn't seen this in a long time, and really glad Scream Factory gave it a lot of love. I mean, you get here new interviews with Shannon Elizabeth and John DeSantis, who's another one of the actors, producers, and more. Shannon Elizabeth, actually, I was kind of shocked that they got Shannon Elizabeth for this. And she's really nice. She's really forthcoming, talking about the making of this movie and how she had a really great time on set and the difficulties. Really great interview, man. You also get an audio commentary from the director, Steve Beck, the production designer and special makeup effects artist. And it's a really great one because they talk about the designs of the ghosts. They talk about the backstory. They talk about, the time that this came out in, horror movies in general, the actors. A lot of really great points here that they make. You also get 13 Ghosts Revealed, which is an old school feature from back in the day. Ghost Files, which Ghost Files is really great. Ghost Files is actually, it goes into the backstory of all of the ghosts themselves. And as I said, I love the design of the ghosts. I love how they kill, and I love how brutal they are. Unfortunately, in the movie itself, we never really got any real major explanation for any of the ghosts themselves. So if you're looking for more information, Ghost Files is definitely the place to go for that one. And theatrical trailer as well. I mean, look, I look back on horror in the early 2000s as kind of like almost like a sad state of affairs for horror flicks. I hate to say it, man, because I thought that they kind of went down the bad path a little bit, and there was a few bright spots in the early 2000s for horror. I think 13 Ghosts ended up being one of them over the years. At first, maybe not so much, but it definitely, I think, over time gained a lot of love from fans, and even people like myself who didn't love it at first definitely, I think, grew to enjoy it. It's not bad. Like I said, it's cheap thrills, fast pace, but there's still a lot of really great moments here. Definitely worth exploring, man. So if you like early 2000s horror or like some scary ghost tales, 13 Ghosts, not half bad, man. Definitely give it a chance. 13 Ghosts. And the next title that I picked up, guys, is more Scream Factory love. In fact, it is double feature Scream Factory love, and that is none other than the Scream Factory double feature of Caged Heat and Jackson County Jail. Oh man, you know, if you guys have been keeping up with the pickup videos for a long while, you know that I've actually been getting into more women in prison flicks. I actually have. I've actually quite been very fond of them. I've loved a lot of them that I've gotten. And a lot of them have just been straight up blind buys. But, I look into the movie through IMDb and a little bit on YouTube, and I'm like, okay, it looks cool. I'm going to give it a chance. And with this got announced on Facebook by Scream Factory, and they said, look, we're making this, we're making, just a limited run of prints, and that's it, and then we're done. And it's like, okay, fine, okay, this is it then. And and so I realized, okay, if I don't get up on this at some point soon, I'm gonna miss out on it completely. So I definitely wanted it, man. Now they're both women in prison flicks, but they're a little bit different in a lot of ways. I mean, Caged Heat. Well, out of the both of them, Caged Heat is definitely my favorite. Caged Heat is basically about this woman who is part of this robbery, and she ends up getting caught and going to this women's prison facility, and it is just basically a complete shit show, man. I mean, she has been entered into hell. Not only are the women just not exactly the nicest human beings on the planet, but you have this evil doctor that is experimenting on them. You have the warden who is a complete and utter bitch, and just these women are just fighting for the survival of their lives every single day. And eventually, a bunch of these women are like, we have to escape, and it's just them dealing with life in prison, escaping, and actually trying to go back and free the other women as well. I love this movie. I think Cage Heat is awesome, man. Very much sexual exploitation, with, of course you see a lot of nakedness and women catfights, and, even like the doctor doing some unpleasant stuff on the ladies. Trust me, he gets his comeuppance, but it's just one of those movies where all of these terrible things happen, and you have to go through all the terrible stuff in order to see these people finally get their just desserts. And they do. I think it's really well done. I love the personalities. I love the ladies. I love how badass they are. And what's really interesting about both of the films, but especially with Caged Heat, is that they were made during a time, I believe it was probably in like the 70s, I would imagine. And it's interesting because they're very strong female characters here. It's not like they're weak. And I actually think these women in prison flicks are actually really great empowering films for females. And I know some of you are gonna probably like look at me like I'm odd. Like, are you kidding me? These are female empowerment movies. But in fact, if you really look at them, they actually are, man. And they show really strong women trying to survive these ordeals and maybe coming out stronger and more resilient because of it. I mean, again, that's just my opinion, but you guys could definitely disagree. And Jackson County Jail is really about this woman who is down on her luck. Her husband is cheating on her, and she just wants to reinvent her life and go someplace new and you know make a new life for herself. And so she's going back to her old job. She's going to go on a road trip, and she ends up basically taking these two hitchhikers in, and it was the most stupid thing. What is it with like the 70s or something where everybody was picking up hitchhikers and easily trusting people? Like, what in the hell was up with that, man? Good lord, my god, man, that would so never fly now. Just saying, that would never fly, guys. But they end up screwing her over. She doesn't have a car. She goes into this one place. This guy is trying to like rape her, and suddenly the cop is like, "Well, you were disrupting him, and who are you? You don't even have your wallet. You have nothing." And suddenly she gets thrown into jail, and her life gets completely fucked over. And it's like, oh my god! And it's just her crazy dealings with being in this jail and having to deal with the cops and dealing with the other women. And oh man, this was really great, man. Jackson County Jail is really fantastic, and I just felt bad for this woman. Honestly, I was watching the movie and I'm like, my god, this woman has the shittiest luck in the world. She literally is just trying to make a better life for herself, and she's trying to be nice to other people, and it just blows up in her face every single fucking time, man. God damn, man. It's just like, boy, this chick can't catch a goddamn break. But I just love her struggles, and I love how, she overcomes those things. And you got a great cast in this. Tommy Lee Jones is in this movie. Robert Carradine. That's some young people at this point in their careers, man. It was kind of wild to see them in this movie, and I didn't even think that they were in this, but it kind of was kind of cool to see, like wow, when you think of Tommy Lee Jones or Robert Carradine, you don't think of them being in a female in prison exploitation flick, but it's kind of surprised to see him, man. Really great here, and even with Caged Heat is directed by Jonathan Demme. Now, again, Jonathan Demme, Silence of the Lambs, Philadelphia, and you're thinking, okay, this is the same guy that directed that directed Caged Heat. It's I gotta tell you, what's really great about these women in prison flicks, especially the old school ones from the '70s, is that I think a lot of these young actors and young directors at the time, they're just looking for stuff to star in. They're looking for a paycheck, and you know, if somebody's offering them a job, they're gonna take it, man. Honestly, and these movies were produced by Roger Corman. Roger Corman, of course, is legendary, and Roger Corman was always somebody who would literally he would say, "Okay, give me a poster, give me a title, and let's promote this and let's make the movie off of that." And that's what he did. And he would come up with the most craziest and wild concepts. And sometimes the movie, succeeded and surpassed expectations, and sometimes it didn't. But you were always fascinated by Roger Corman and all the crazy stuff that he came up with. And this is some of the best prison flick exploitation stuff. He did a good job, man. Give him credit, man. He always went for some wild stuff, but he pulled it off. He really did, man. And you get here with KGT, you get audio commentary with the writer director Jonathan Demme director of photography, and one of the actresses. This is an old school commentary because, of course, Jonathan Demme is no longer with us. But it's a really good commentary, very talkative about making the movie, working with Roger Corman, the low budget, really great stuff here. You also get Leonard Maltin interviews Roger Corman, and this is part one of two interviews that he did with Leonard Maltin, and he talks about KT and he talks about making that movie and the exploitation aspects. Really great stuff there. With Jackson County Jail, you get a audio commentary with director Michael Miller, a producer, and director of photography as well. And that's a really great one where they honestly, again, talk about the movie, talk about the difficulties of making it, again, working with Roger Corman. A lot of really great stuff there. And you have Leonard Maltin interviews Roger Corman, and this is part two where he also talks about Jackson County Jail and women in prison flicks in general. Really great interview and theatrical trailer for both films also. You know what, man? I am slowly becoming a huge fan of women in prison flicks. I really am. I've gotten quite a lot of them. I don't know which ones I may be missing out on because I've gotten a lot of them before, but stuff from Scream Factory and other companies as well. But I just really love them. I love the really strong, badass females. I love, the sleaziness and the perverseness of these movies. And there's something about it that, to me, seeing these strong females overcoming all of the difficulties, I think it was ahead of its time. I really do. I could be wrong, but I think it was ahead of its time, and I think there's some really great women in prison flicks out there that are vastly underrated, man. And I think these two are definitely one of them by far, man. If you haven't checked out these flicks, definitely do it. And if you're into women in prison flicks, get up on some of these great ones out there because there's some really cool ones, definitely worth exploring. Not bad at all. Some double feature Scream Factory love. I don't always get double features, but this one was definitely worth it. Not bad. Kate and Jackson County Jail. And the next pickup that I got, guys, is more Scream Factory love and another limited edition Scream Factory release that got announced the same time as Caged Heat and Jackson County Jail. And that is none other than Street of Walking. Street of Walking. Couldn't help myself, guys. Yes, Street Walking. I was kind of curious about this one. Actually, I knew I was wanting to get Caged Heat in Jackson County Jail. I knew I wanted to get that. And then I wasn't actually sure about Street Walking. And I kind of looked it up and I'm like, this looks kind of unique and interesting. Something I was like, okay, I wasn't really expecting it, but it kind of looks up my alley. So I decided, look, I'm going to blind buy it. I'm going to give it a chance. And boy, was I actually really surprised by this one. Swear to God, I really was, man. It's basically about this woman played by Melissa Leo who she's a runaway with her brother, and they left the family due to whatever circumstances. They can't go back home. They're poor. They don't have any money. And this guy sort of notices her, this pimp, says, hey, look, I will give you a good life. Come with me. You can make money. And she does. And, it even says it here. She dropped out of high school this morning. Tonight, she's a Times Square hooker. Of course you are, honey. Of course you are. It only makes sense. You're in New York City. What other occupation are you going to have? Come on. So, and it's just basically her journey of being this hooker and the complications with the pimp and this sort of one white hot night of passion and murder and lust and betrayal and just survival in general. Now, this movie, at first, like the opening sequence happens, and then it cuts to like this theme song of "Street Walking," and you're kind of feeling good about it. You're kind of and you're like, okay, this is kind of a, I guess, a feel good hooker movie. Oh, okay, I'm down for it. And then it like slowly but surely it starts to turn into something really dark, and you're like, damn, I was not expecting where this was going. I really wasn't, man. And I actually thought it was really well done. I mean, first of all, Melissa Leo is amazing in this movie. And it's kind of weird because I've known Melissa Leo from movies like The Fighter and stuff that she's done in recent years. And I've just known her as an older actress. I've never really seen her as a younger chick before. And she was a good looking woman. I could see why she would be a hooker, man. I mean, seriously. I was like, okay, she's good looking. I could see guys paying for her services. And I thought she did a great job. I also end up thinking, what's his name there? Dale Midkiff, yeah, from Pet Cemetery. He plays the sadistic pimp named Duke, and he's great here as well. I loved him. I thought he was awesome here, man. And at times, like he's a really, at times you want to like this guy because he gives her a nice place, and he gives her money, and a stable life in some ways. But then he's like really just downright perverted and sinister, and he's beating up these women, and he's killing these people, and you're like, oh my god, this guy is out of his mind. He's sick. And you're just like, oh my gosh, she has got to get away from him. She's got to survive this. And you're just like, oh my god, man, run from this guy. This guy is no good for you. And it's just the seedy underbelly of this sort of pimp and hooker world. And it was really well done. It actually reminded me a lot of another Scream Factory release that I picked up a while back, which was Vice Squad. It reminded me a lot of Vice Squad, man, and I was like, wow, and I really loved Vice Squad, so this definitely was up my alley. And one of the things I really love about this movie in general is the time that it was made, and showing off New York City and showing off the seedy world of New York City. Because, look, there was a time that when New York City was really dangerous and really just very perverted and seedy, and I love movies like The New York Ripper or Basket Case, some movies like that show New York as this really slimeball place, man. And it just, I don't know if I would say I would ever be nostalgic for that time, but there's something about that where you just are like, wow, these were really like you look at where New York City is now versus what it used to be, and it's like, wow, like two completely different worlds, like two alternate realities, man. And I just love seeing that time period because it's so wild, man, of the things that were happening, especially in the nighttime. And it's just a really well done movie with great performances, great action, great exploitation. Again, it starts off kind of light and gets more darker, but boy, it's a brilliant movie, man. And it's a movie I had never heard of. So when Scream Factory announced it, I was like, I don't know what this movie is, but I'm gonna give it a chance. And actually, I'm so happy I did. It's a limited edition run. I have a feeling it's probably out of print now because they was going pretty fast. So if you're probably gonna pick this up, you might find it on Scream Factory's website, or you might find it on eBay and then pay much more of a price because scalpers are assholes. But it's one worth exploring. It really is, man. I was shocked by it. I wasn't expecting how good it was. It really was not expecting it, man. You get an audio commentary with the director writer Joan Freeman and producer writer Robert Alden. And this is a really great audio commentary, man. It really honestly is. Because they really talk about working with Roger Corman. they talk about actually how they made this movie, because they didn't just blindly make this movie. They actually went to New York City and actually talked to real life hookers and real life pimps, and you know, how they helped some of these hookers get out of the situations they were in. They talked about how actually the writer director, the female, actually almost got put into being a hooker. Like, swear to God, like, there was actually a great story she had of, like, these guys were trying to, like, you know, like, kind of lure her into being a prostitute for them, and she had to try to, like, be like, no, I'm not here for that, and they were, like, trying to force her, and it was so interesting, man. Like, some wild stories from the set of this movie, and how they made it, and who they talked to for the sort of the authenticity of it. Really fantastic commentary, man. I was blown away by how really great it was. And you also get a theatrical trailer as well. I gotta admit, man, I really thought this was a really fantastic flick. And for me, yeah, again, man, that's why I sort of blind buy certain titles. It's not because I want to go out of my way to just blind buy stuff for the sake of blind buying shit. I mean, yeah, I do, but to me, I kind of feel like sometimes there are certain movies that are worth gambling on. And Street Walking to me felt like a movie that, like, I've seen these type of movies before, and I've kind of always had the soft spot for these type of flicks, whether it's a movie like this or Vice Squad or something like that, where seeing the seedy underbelly of life and the crime and everything like that. There's something about it that kind of really fascinates me. And so Street Walking was right up my alley, and honestly, it did not disappoint me, man. So if you like these type of movies, honestly, highly recommend Street Walking. Actually, pretty damn good. Not half bad, man, and a very sexy Melissa Leo. Really surprised by that, and I may never see movies like The Fighter the same ever again after seeing how hot Melissa Leo used to be. Wild times, man, crazy, but well, we're worth it. Street Walking. And the next pickup that I got, guys, well, in fact, if you guys notice, I actually changed my shirt, and you can kind of look at that. Yeah, awesome. So I got this during the Severance sale that they had. This was actually from Emmanuel and the Last Cannibals, and it was on discount. So I was like, I really don't buy horror shirts, but I was like, whatever, I'm gonna sort of, buy one. The sale was happening, so I was like, what the hell, dude? So this was really, really cool, man. I really love this shirt, dude. So I figured, by showing off the Severance sale, I might as well show off the shirt at the same time. So, yes, with the Severance sale, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 titles, guys. So let's start with this huge Severance sale. And the first thing I got is more Lucio Fulci goodness. And that is none other than Demonia right here. Look at that really great slip, man. That is awesome, man. Look at that. So good, dude. And then on the inside with this art right here. Very nice. Awesome cover, dude. So, if you guys have been keeping up with the channel for a really long time, the Blu-ray pickup videos, you know that I am trying to go out of my way to get as much of the Fulci titles that are out there that I possibly can, grow the Fulci collection. I'm on the hunt, and I've gotten a lot over a really, good period of time. And when Severance sort of announced their sale, they announced a couple of Fulci titles, and one of them being Demonia. Now, I had never heard of this title, like a lot of the ones that I've seen of Fulci's, but because it was Fulci, I definitely was going to pick it up. And this is about basically a research team that goes to Italy, Sicily area, and they're uncovering this dig, and they're there, and they're sort of at the same time the locals are not really on their side. They don't want them to be there because they may uncover this secret with uh, these nuns and the Catholic religion, and these how there's like this deep dark secret that comes to sort of bite the town back in the ass, and also this research team as well, and sort of digging up the dark secrets and the dark truths that is going on. And maybe by doing that, you're also end up bringing these nuns who are dead maybe back to life to seek revenge. Okay, so you know what? This movie is kind of interesting because with a lot of Fulci films, you get full on in your face gore. It's right from the start. It begins. It's like here we are, here we go. It's all in your face. This movie is a little bit more of a slow build. It's a slow build up. It takes its time, and I think that's why maybe this film is not as popular within the Fulci library as some of the other stuff, like a zombie or the Beyond, stuff like that, because it doesn't have as much gore and blood as what some of those other Fulci films offer, and it doesn't have the in your face storytelling with the action and the horror straight off the bat that you would get in other films. This takes its time. It takes its time with telling the story, the characters diving into the secrets of what's going on. And in some ways, I think that if you're used to more popular Fulci titles, I think you're going to come across with this film saying, I don't know, this one might not be for me. For me, I enjoyed it because I like some of the slower build Fulci stuff that I've seen over the years. And this is one of those titles that is, again, it's kind of like a lot of more unknown Fulci stuff that I've seen in the past. Stuff like Voices from Beyond, or some of the early giallos that Fulci did, like Perversion Story. It's it held my interest because I like the intriguing story about these nuns and how they were sexualizing with these men, and how the community turned against them, and I sort of like that story, and it was a build that slowly creeped up on you. This movie's not going to be for everybody, to be fair, but I love the build up that Fulci does. And when he does give you the horror, I think the horror is completely earned in this movie. Like I said, it's not flashy, it's not showy, it's not in your face, but I think when it's done well. And I think that's a really great thing, man. I honestly do. Like I said, I like the imagery here of the nuns' faces. I like when there is the gore, it's very well done. And you get a lot of the old school Fulci actors that you've seen in other things, like Brett Halsey from The Devil's Honey, and other actors like that as well. It's a slow burn horror flick, but it's a slow burn Fulci horror flick. And what I find with Fulci is it doesn't matter whether it's slow burn or something that's a little more in your face. I feel like he's just a master of chilling suspense. And I appreciate anything he does, whether it's slow burn or something that's a little bit more sort of rock and roll and fast paced. I think he does well regardless. But this is not one that's going to be like on everyone's top 10 Fulci list. But I got to admit, man, that to me, I really enjoyed this one quite a bit, man. So I enjoyed this, and Severin gave it a lot of love, man. A lot of really great love here. You get an interview with the uncredited co-writer and assistant director, and he does a great job talking about working with Fulci, the storylines, what he participated with in the movie. Very interesting stuff. You also get an interview with Lucio Fulci on set of Demonia, and that's a really great one. Anything dealing with Fulci and being on set with him is great because you get to hear from his own words, and you can see the passion that he has for filmmaking, man. You really can. Really great stuff. You also get an interview with the camera operator, an audio commentary by the author of Beyond Terror, the films of Lucio Fulci. It's a great audio commentary because this guy knows his shit. Like, he really does, man. Like, he is somebody that knows every single thing about Fulci. He knows everything about the films. He gives you great information about the time that this was made, why Fulci made it, the reception to the film, everything. So well done, man. And also original trailer as well. I gotta admit, man, to me, Fulci will always be special. And whether we're talking about something that's more of a sort of more like bombastic horror experience like a zombie, or something that's a little more slow burn, takes its time, and lets you wait for the horror to happen, like something like Demonia, I still think he's a master of filmmaking, and he's one of the best horror directors of all time because of it. Like I said, this is not going to be everybody's jam. I understand it. It is slower than some of the other Fulci stuff you may have seen before. But if you're willing to give a slow burn movie a chance, Fulci is one of the people that does it best. And I think this is really well done. And not bad. Some sort of nun-sploitation. Fulci style. Pretty good, man. Definitely give it a look. Demonia. And speaking of Fulci, one more for the collection, guys, and this was the second Fulci title that was on sale. Had to pick it up, and that is none other than Enigma. Look at that. Great, great slip, man. I love that slip. And then on the inside, right here. Now, some of you may actually think that it's the same image on the slip and here, but there is very slight differences, if you can tell. Very, very slight differences indeed. For all you keenly aware lovers of our artwork, you can see some slight differences. And again, because it's Lucio Fulci, I had to pick it up, man. Now, look, to be fair, to be honest with you guys, now, I realize that these are two lesser known titles, something like Enigma and then something like Demonia. I realize that, but, again, even lesser known Fulci is still, in my opinion, good Fulci. So what's kind of interesting with this movie is basically it's about this girl who ends up going on a date with this guy. She's very shy. She didn't really think this guy would notice her, and she's making out with him, and suddenly she gets incredibly embarrassed. These people are playing a prank on her. They're making fun of her. Even the guy that she's making out with completely is in on this thing, and she's so distraught and just really just freaked out by the whole thing that she ends up getting into an accident, and she sort of becomes comatose because of it. And then around this same time, there's a new girl that is coming to the school, and sort of freaky things are happening because of this new girl. Now, is it because of this girl's past, or is it because the woman that's comatose right now is maybe channeling herself through this other girl to exact revenge on the people that did her wrong? Well, you would have to watch the movie to find out, guys, but honestly, I really did like this movie. Now, this is another slow burn like Demonia, to be fair, but it reminded me of something like Carrie or Suspiria or Phenomena, something like that. But, again, Fulci style. And I really did like this movie, man, especially some of the death scenes this time around. I mean, again, as I said, it's a slow burn. We don't get the full on Fulci gore like, House by the Cemetery or Zombie, stuff like that. We just don't get it the same with Demonia. But when there is a death scene, it is very impactful, man. I mean, there's this great like death by snail scene, which is like I was like, what the fuck, man? Like you would never think like snails would be involved in a like memorable kill scene, but I guess if they're gonna do it, why not be in a full sheet film? And there's another one with like this statue that comes to life, and there's some really great death scenes. There's some really great imagery, and it's sort of Fulci's take on something like a Carrie that really I think this movie is definitely very much influenced by, and I really like that. I really like the idea of somebody that could be on death's door before they go, taking out as many of the people that wrong them as possible. I think it's really cool, man. It's a really cool story. I love, like I said, the imagery. The acting is very much over the top. This is Italian, man. When you're talking about Italian horror, a lot of times you are talking about over the top acting. Oh, take me, Sir Sergio, and oh yeah, and then the deaths are like, oh, it's just so crazy and batshit insane, man, and just so over the top that you can't help but enjoy it and kind of laugh at it. But this is good, man. This was really really great, and what I'm finding more and more actually is that when it comes to Fulci, yes, everybody knows some of the bigger titles out there that you've heard of him. Things like the New York Ripper and the Beyond and House by the Cemetery, Zombie, all that stuff. You heard about those titles. But I'm finding that the lesser known ones, the ones that maybe haven't gotten the love that they truly deserved, things like Murder Rock or Don't Torture a Duckling, I think that even like movies like Perversion Story or Demonia, I think that what's really interesting about Fulci is that I think Fulci is a director that was never held down exactly by one specific way to tell a story and one specific genre. Like again, he'll tell a zombie tale and it'll be like a rockin' good time, the kills and the ripping of the flesh. And then he'll tell a tale of mistaken identity with a woman trying to exact revenge, or this sort of rock and roll horror dance flick like Murder Rock. Like he was never held down by a certain thing. He was always influenced by other filmmakers. He was influenced by other movies, and he took that influence and he made it his own thing. And I've always appreciated that about Fulci, man. And I think things like Enigma or Demonia are really interesting movies in his filmography because, when you're a director like a Fulci, or even, you look at people like, Carpenter or Craven or all these other filmmakers, and I think that a lot of the fan base and a lot of the investors in these projects are always like, oh, you're gonna make the next Zombie, right? You're gonna make the next Beyond. You're gonna make the next this and next that was popular before. And if you're a really good horror filmmaker, you don't want to repeat yourself over and over again. You want to go new territories. You want to do new things. You want to explore different avenues. Fulci was never a full-on horror guy. And some of the earlier films in his filmography prove that. But he slowly became the horror guy, and those are the movies that he was able to do. But just because he became the horror guy doesn't mean that he had to do every film like a zombie or every film like a House by the Cemetery. He wanted to do something unique and interesting with every single project and tell it in a different way that maybe challenged him. And I think Enigma and Demonia prove that yes, maybe they're not the most popular Fulci titles, but they don't have to be. I think he's very happy being a very unique filmmaker at the time, whether it's something that's more fast paced and bloody and gory or something that's a little more slow burn and a little more psychological. He takes his time and he tells a story the way he wants to tell it. And that's why I've really appreciated Fulci as much as I have, man. And movies like Enigma or Demonia, even though they're a little bit similar, they're very different tales, they're very different stories, they're very different atmospheres. For a filmmaker that doesn't want to be tied down to one specific subgenre of horror, he wants to do some very unique and interesting things. And these two films really are unique for that reason, man. And that's why I appreciate Fulci as much as I honestly do. And speaking of appreciation, Severin does a really good job of For Sure, man. You do get an audio commentary with Troy Howarth and Mondo Digital's Nathaniel Thompson, and they are very, very knowledgeable, man, about Enigma. They're very knowledgeable about Fulci and about this film and what he was trying to accomplish. They definitely were, man, and it's a great commentary. Just, anytime that they're talking Fulci and talking about him as an influencer and filmmaking the movie, I'm always kind of leaning in and listening because I love all the stories about Fulci. I really do. They have that. They also have an interview with the screenwriter and appreciating late day Fulci. And I love this featurette, appreciating late day Fulci. I really honestly do. And the reason that I do, guys, is that, because this featurette actually goes out of its way to talk about, hey, by the way, yes, we love a lot of the well-known titles, but there's also a lot of these other titles that you may not know of that really doesn't get the kind of love that it should. And they talk about why Fulci made them and how they sort of influenced the genre, even though many people might not know them by heart. I love this featurette. And any sort of appreciation of Fulci really gets me going, and this is great, man. You have that and trailer as well, and it also comes with the soundtrack CD too. Great soundtrack here. Fulci always does really cool soundtracks, especially in the 80s, man. This is a really great slow burn title of Fulci's. Look, you get great atmosphere, you get some really cool and interesting kills, and, at the end of the day, for me at least, look, Fulci is never going to be the most recognizable horror filmmaker of all time. He's just not going to be. Because I think that people only know a certain amount of Fulci and that's what they know. But if you dig down deeper, I think you find some really unique titles of his, and I think Enigma is one of those titles that, again, once you get past the more popular stuff, like any filmmaker out there, you get to see some really unique and interesting work outside of the popular stuff, and I think Enigma is one of those ones that yes, in some ways has that sort of Carrie Suspiria type of ripoff at times, but I think Fulci does it well. And look, to me, any Fulci is good for Fulci, but I think as horror lovers out there, I think it's part of our duty as horror lovers and people who love the genre to sort of dive into titles that I think we learn to appreciate because we can give them a chance. And I think if you guys give some later Fulci a chance, or some of the more unknown stuff, I think you're going to find them to be a very pleasant surprise for sure. And Enigma is definitely one of those. Definitely give it a chance, man. Enigma. And the next pickup that I got, guys, is one that actually I've been wanting to get for a while. And, during the sale, I just decided, what the hell? I'm gonna pull the trigger, man. And this is none other than Kathy's curse. Oh, brother, man. I love this. I sent mommy to the madhouse. I scared the butler to death. I threw Nanny out the window. Now three of us are left. Daddy, Dolly, and me. She has the power to terrorize. Oh, look at those evil green eyes, man. Woo! So, the only reason why I know about this movie is because Red Letter Media ended up actually reviewing it one time. And I watched it, I'm like, wow, this is really odd, man. This is really bizarre. And it kind of piqued my interest. And I've been kind of wanting it ever since, to be honest with you. Now, basically, this is about a family that moves into this house, and uh, a long time before that, there was a tragedy that happened with a father and a daughter, and now the daughter is still trying to seek retribution. She's still trying. She hasn't fully been rested yet. She still feels like there's unfinished business, and she's trying to take over the little girl Kathy, and just all the weirdness and bizarreness that kind of happens from there, man. What's kind of interesting, and they even kind of say it here, is that on the back cover, is that, you know, when you think of like The Exorcist or The Omen or Carrie, those were very powerhouse films. And a lot of sort of Exorcist Omen ripoffs kind of happened after that, man. And there was like a flood of them. And Kathy's Curse is one of those that is very much a ripoff of, those Exorcist days, The Omen and whatnot. And it kind of spins it into its own story. Wow, man. I mean, from the word go, this is a bizarre film, man. I mean, the way that it's edited, the way that they're telling the story. I mean, the most classic line in this is basically this guy literally stands up. This little girl's asking for her mother, and he's like, your mother's a bitch. And I'm like, whoa, okay. And just it's so matter of fact. Yeah, your mother's a bitch. Like, all right, man. I guess you don't like that woman very much, and just I just love these type of movies are so great, man, because I love them where it's like the child is being possessed and the mother is kind of sensing what's going on, and the husband is always like, "Oh, you're going crazy, you're going nuts, you're out of your mind, oh, our little girl is so sweet and innocent and she's never going to do anything wrong, and oh, you're trying to destroy this family." And I'm like, "Why don't you just believe the chick, okay? Like, what the hell, man?" And it's happened before in like The Exorcist and The Omen and all of these ones, man. It happens constantly, dude. But I love I love everything because I love sort of Kathy, the little girl, like moments where she's just so vulgar to people, and moments where it's like the telepathic stuff where like her like her bear and something like she takes the bear back, or the crazy insane like psychic lady or something that's going nuts and gets thrown out the window. You're like, what is going on here, man? It's one of those really great bizarre Exorcist ripoffs, man. It really honestly is, dude. And even some of the comedy and the characters don't make sense. There's this really like drunken old guy that is just like, why is he there? What's going on? You know, and why is the husband sort of like the husband is so nonchalant about everything, all the crazy shit that's happening around him, and everything. He's just he's just so like matter of fact about it all. Oh well, this is I'm like, dude, it's right in your face. Like literally, you don't see what's going on. You ignorant motherfucker. like, good God, man. You know, it's like the Amityville thing. It's like, get the fuck out of the house. Just get the fuck out, man. You know, tell the realtor you made a mistake. You know, swallow the money. Who gives a fuck? Get the hell out of there. Go to a Motel 8 or some shit. God damn, man. Like it's one of those. As I said, it's a Canadian shocker movie that really, I think a lot of people watch it, and it's kind of one of those really bizarre experiences where you're watching the movie and you're like, this is really odd. It's not it's too weird to be mainstream, but it's weird enough to be very hypnotic and very like you can't take your eyes off of the screen. And you're like, what? Like, I don't know if the filmmakers intended for this movie to be like it is, or it was, it was just all accidental or whatever, man. But they like went out of their way to make some really bizarre movie that is both oddball yet horrific and oddly funny. And you're just like, wow, man, this thing like is like very weird, man. I gotta admit, like, out of all of the ones that came shortly after The Exorcist and The Omen, this one has to be up there in one of the most baffling ones I've ever seen. But goddamn, did I enjoy this? I really did, man. Now you do get here the director's cut and the U.S. release cut. I watched both, and I actually do like the director's cut better. And the reason why I like the director's cut better is it actually explains more, and it actually kind of gives you better context within the story, and there's better editing. The alternate US cut, the editing is very weird and very choppy, man. It's kind of all over the place. And some of it doesn't make any sense. Where at least with the director's cut, you kind of feel like, yes, there is some more coherence. Can't say there's a hell of a lot more, but there is more. And I kind of like the story a little bit more. I like there's a little bit more characterization, and there's a little more stuff with Kathy. I kind of like that. You also get Kathy and Mom interview featurette with actress Randy Allen and costumer Joyce Allen. This is really great because they talk about playing Kathy. They talk about the design of the actual costumes and how they wanted to go about this. And, it is one of those movies where even the actress is like, look, when I made this movie, I was a kid. I didn't know what I was exactly getting myself into. And she's like, and she even says for a long time that she was kind of, not saying she was, ashamed of the movie, but, she just didn't really think anybody really cared about it until years later people sort of found her on social media and they're like, oh my God, this thing actually has more of a cult following than she realized. Really great stuff there. You also get an audio commentary on the U.S. cut with Brian Collins and filmmaker Simon Barrett, and I do like this commentary. They're very much fanboys of the film. They love it. They talk about how they rediscovered this film and how it's one of those really bizarre experiences that really, you're not really sure whether many people really care about this film until you end up, bringing it more to light through opinion pieces on the internet, and suddenly you get people who are like, "Oh my God, yeah, Kathy's cursed, dude," and so it's kind of a nice little fan commentary. I like that one. And you also get an introduction to cinematic void screening as well, and this critic sort of talks about, obviously writing about it in his blog, how people really started to gain traction on the movie and bringing it to more people's attention, which is really cool as well. And theatrical trailer. Look, I'm not gonna lie, guys. Like, movies like this are real oddball ones, man. And there's so many like it, where it's like, you had a really great movie and a really great, popular experience of The Exorcist or other movies like Carrie and The Omen, And then everybody is trying to replicate that. And you saw so many ripoffs and so many movies that tried to do their own spin on that story, and Kathy's Curse is yet another one of those. But I gotta admit, out of a lot of them, Kathy's Curse is probably the most fascinating of them all, man. A movie that doesn't quite work as a whole, but the individual parts are very interesting, and it's so oddball and weird that you just kind of have to appreciate the effort. It's not a movie that everybody's gonna love, granted, but it's a movie that I think that when you watch it, you understand why it's a cult movie, and I think it definitely deserves the cult status. I do think that, man. What a wild film, man. Yeesh. And what a great line. Your mother's a bitch. Only Kathy's Curse. Dig into some Exorcist ripoff goodness. And the next title, speaking of weirdness, oh Lord. Don't hate me, guys. I wanted this for a while, and I buy some really weird and sick shit. I do. And that is none other than the Sinful Dwarf. Oh, brother. Yeah, look at that really evil motherfucker. Oh, man, the woman and oh, Lord. Oh, man. Okay, so look, this movie has kind of been on my list for a while of ones that I've wanted to pick up. And every single Severance sale, I'm always like, okay, I'm gonna pick up The Sinful Dwarf. And then I'm sitting there like, I don't know, maybe. And I kind of pass on it. This time around, the sale, I was like, hey, let me finally do it. Let me finally pick this sucker up. And I finally pulled the trigger, man. Now, this this movie is basically about this couple who rents out this room from this older woman and her son, and what they don't realize is that basically this woman and her son are basically running this prostitution ring where they basically kidnapped a lot of these women and they're using them as sex slaves, and they're about to do the same to this woman that just moved in as well, and it's just this journey of perverseness and just downright sleaziness, and that's what the movie is, man. Look, I have heard about this movie over the years from many people. Like, oh my god, it's the most depraved movie of all time. It's one of the most sleazy movies ever. And I had heard it all. And I kind of went in with a certain amount of expectation to this movie because when you're hyped so much, you tend to go in with a certain amount of an expectation, and that's what I did with the Sinful Dwarf. And I'm not gonna lie, after watching the movie, I was a little like, okay, it's still very sleazy. It's still a very perverse movie, but it's not as perverse as other movies that I've seen. Now, mind you, I have watched some really fucked up flicks, man, over the time I've been a movie fan. And so I kind of look at The Sinful Dwarf as kind of like, okay, I've watched movies that are way more fucked up than this. I've watched movies that are way more perverse, way more sleazy than this flick is. But I'm not gonna lie, because when I looked at the movie for the time that it was made, I understood why people were as shocked as they were by this flick. And by today's standards, it may seem a little light, but it still is kind of shocking though once you put it in context. I mean, what they do to these women, I mean, they basically degrade them. They humiliate them. They abuse them. They beat them. They inject them with drugs. They sexualize them, and you see men basically, just just having their way with them. And trust me, it is full on. You see it. It's not like this is not like a Cinemax thing where you see the chick moan and you know the guy's face like this like it's like no, you actually see the penetration. You see that stuff. I mean, in some ways, you might as well call this rape in a lot of ways. I mean, it is kind of shocking to some people. You know, and what's really messed up about it is basically the guy here, the guy who is the dwarf here, the son of the older woman. He is just in his glory, like he's like he's just like that's like oh my god, dude, like you are so getting off on this shit, like yo. And even the mother is very weird because the mother is kind of like this woman who like she must have been at some point this like lounge singer or this woman who had a promising entertainment career, and what ended up happening was that she ended up actually like I don't, I probably had this kid and, her career died and she's this kind of woman that's still like reliving the old days and trying to make money off of these people and exploiting these women, who are now more gorgeous than she is. So it's like this weird thing of like this weird mother and son dynamic, exploiting these women and this wholesome sort of husband and wife that think they're renting from nice people, but in fact, that is so not the case, man. Most of these characters are sleazy, they're not trustworthy, and you just feel bad for all these women who are involved here because they just can't escape and they're just being used and exploited. And you even feel bad for them making the movie too, because you're like, my God, man, did these women really know what they were signing up for when they were making this flick? Like, what were the filmmakers' true intentions here? And I have to admit, guys, to be honest with you, that one of the special features here, they go into the guy who produced this movie and produced many films like this, films that were sort of sexploitation films for the time that they were made. And it's interesting because if you go back to movies like Boogie Nights, and it's kind of weird to talk about Boogie Nights comparing this to that, but the reason why I say that is because filmmakers like that guy that they portrayed, Burt Reynolds as in Boogie Nights, he was a filmmaker who considered himself, I'm a filmmaker, I'm a unique filmmaker, I make film, I make movies, they just have sexual content in them, and that's what cinema was like back in the day. Like, they would make porno flicks, and those flicks would come to a big movie theater, and they would play them like a regular movie would play today. And it's only until, like, later on that they were deemed, too hardcore, and they left theaters, and they weren't allowed to be there. But producers and filmmakers like this took advantage of the market and would tell this horror story wrapped, within like this, exploitation, sexualizing porno flick and put it on the big screen. And this producer is very unique for that. And I thought it was very fascinating, man. I mean, it's a movie that I think at the time really shocked people. And even like thinking about the movie now, like the movie's intriguing, but I gotta tell you, man, it fascinates me movies like this, and the reason why is because there was actually a time very long ago that women would literally trust a dude, literally, oh, you have a little puppy or something, oh, that's so cute, and I'll walk with you to your house. Like, oh my fucking God, man, that would never happen now, man. Man, you be calling 9911, you get the pepper spray out, man. Man, fucking, you running for your life, man. There was literally a time when women would literally do that, and they would be ultra trusting, and I'm like, oh my God, man. Good Lord, man. And people would take advantage, and man, it's weird to say that things like this might have actually happened. It's kind of nuts, man, and really crazy. But it's a good movie. It's a bizarre movie, but you know, I'm just sitting there like, wow, man, I can't believe this shit even got made. But man, I could say that about a lot of shit that I've watched, man. But add Simple Dwarf to the list, man. And as far as the special features are concerned, look, there's two versions. There's the strong international version, and there's the alternate U.S. release version. Um, both of them are different names. One's called the Dwarf, other is called the Abducted Bride. I actually like the alternate U.S. release version. The international version adds some extra sexual stuff that doesn't really need to be seen, to be honest with you. It just adds it for the sake of shock value, which okay, fine, but it didn't really need it. The American release cut is just as fine. That's good. It's decent. You also get like I said, that the Harry Novak story, talking about the producer of this film, the producer of other stuff. You also get another sexual feature called the Blue Balloon, which is a sexual feature talking about the movie and talking. It's a whole different feature in and of itself that deals with a whole nother sexual film, sexual exploitation flick that stars the same guy, the same dwarf in here, and he's having sex with another dwarf, and it's oh god, it's so weird, man. Oh god. You also have the hottest show in town, the search for Torben, and it's actually a search for the guy who plays the sinful dwarf, and it's very interesting because they're trying to search for this guy, and there's not much information about this dude. He was in a few films. He helped work on some other projects as part of the crew, but nobody really knows about this guy. And it's really interesting that this dude, for being in such an infamous film, uh, there's not much information about him. It's very mysterious, man. And we also end up getting a Severin controversy featurette on the lasting effect of the sinful dwarf. And I think it was actually kind of just a joke featurette talking about how people were kind of insulted by the movie and wasn't expecting what they actually got from the film. It was kind of, I think, a joke at the time, but I think people kind of took it seriously. And you also get trailers, TV spots, and radio spots as well. It's kind of interesting because with the features here, they don't get any of the actors or the producers or the filmmakers or any of the crew talking about this movie. Now, some of them are probably obviously long gone at this point. Others, I have a feeling, just frankly don't want to talk about this movie. Look, I'm not gonna lie. This movie it's not for a lot of people out there, man. I'm telling you. Like, this movie is very sleazy. It's very in your face. It's gonna offend a lot of people, and I just kind of feel like it's a movie that is it was made during a time when you could make these movies, and for some reason it was considered okay to make these movies, and they got away with it, and that's it. But I mean, look, they're a time capsule of a time period that's kind of long gone at this point, and it's still a fascinating movie just for the fact that it got made, just for the fact that a movie like this, such oddball weirdness, actually ended up getting made. It's nuts, man. It's sleazy as shit. It's kind of disgusting at times. It's really depraved. But again, being a horror fan, I've seen a lot of weird shit, guys. I've seen stuff that is way more out there and way more perverse and terrible than this is. But I could see where at the time this movie was causing a lot of controversy, and even you might see this cover, or you might see a different cover of this film and say, oh, maybe it's a weird little comedy thing, a ridiculous, outrageous comedy. You could think that, but this movie is so not that, man. I go in with extremely checked expectations, but know that it's really all over the place, and it's really uh, just depravity and just perverseness and sleaziness. But everything in this context, I guess, man. But boy, this is an oddball one for sure, man. It's one that I'm gonna keep in the collection, but it's one I don't think it's gonna come out very often. But when it does, boy, it'll be a unique experience for sure. Oh boy, The Sinful Dwarf. And last but certainly not least of the Severin goodness, man, this has been a unique ride with Severin this time around, man. And I guess I had to end it with some more weirdness. Oh man, and what the hell is this thing? And that is Frankie and Pals. Oh brother. Oh man. The DVD, and it's only coming in DVD. I don't think we're ever gonna get a Blu-ray of this thing, man. And this thing was a limited edition of 1,000 copies, and I actually ended up picking up, if you see there, 223 of 1,000. Actually, not bad, all things considered. And people were like, I remember when this thing got announced, and people went apeshit. Oh my god, Frankie and Pals, and I'm thinking, am I missing something here? Because I've never heard of this movie to save my life at all. Is this like a masterpiece that's on the same par as like Titanic or Goodfellas? Romeo and Juliet that I literally know nothing about, and I'm like, okay. Okay, so this movie, man, it's about Frankie, Drac, Woofy, Mummy, and Humper. I'm assuming Humper is obviously the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and they are basically looking for lost gold, and they go into this small town looking for it, and they end up. This is Halloween night, and they get into a bunch of debauchery and crazy, ridiculous hijinks on Halloween night, going to these parties and just experiencing the locals and all the weirdness that happens. Wow. Okay, guys. So last pickup video, I ended up showing you the shot-on-video movie Ozone. And I talked to you guys about how I wasn't a fan of Ozone. I didn't really like it. It's not that it's a terrible movie, but I just kind of was like, yeah, I'm not really a fan of it. And it was kind of starting to turn me off of shot-on-video flicks. And I'm like, I don't know if I want any more shot-on-video flicks. I don't know if I really want to deal with that. And I thought, God, the next shot-on-video flick, if it doesn't impress me, then I'm just done. And guess what the next shot-on-video flick was? Frankie and Pals. And I'm like, okay, this thing's got to deliver. It just has to. And, I've seen so many reviews of this. Some people have gone out of their way to really love the movie, and other people have gone out of their way to say, man, this thing is pure shit and garbage. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I in for here? And you know what? I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I'm gonna say it straight up. I really like this flick. I mean, I really do. I swear to God, man. And maybe that's a surprise to you guys. Maybe it's not, but I love this movie. I really do, man. I think it's fun. I really do, man. It's so weird and bizarre, man. It's like something you would watch. It's like something that would be on, like, back in the day on USA Up All Night or something. Some weird, late night cable channel where you're just like, what the fuck am I watching, man? But it's so weird and bizarre that it's kind of charming. If that kind of makes any sense, guys. I mean, really, it's so out there, dude. I'm not gonna lie. This movie is cheap as fuck. The makeups are cheap. The costumes are cheap. You know, the way they shot it was cheap. Everything is cheap in this. Special effects, you name it. But again, there's something about that old school charm that really sort of has me endearing to the movie. It really does, man. And it's just so wild because basically all of these sort of these horror monsters, they sort of start to learn to sort of like get into their sexual hijinks, and it's so nuts, man. Whether it's Frankie with his farting habits, whether it's Drac that's trying to find women to, so he can suck their blood, Woofy who gets into like a sudden gay relationship for some odd reason, which is so fucking bizarre, man. You have that the Mummy as well here, and Humper. Oh my god, talk about Humper, man. This motherfucker, like literally, this guy cannot control himself. Literally, he sees a hot chick's ass, and he's like, or like he goes into a random room where two people are having sex, they're getting it on, and he's just sitting there watching it. He's watching them fucking. He's like, and I'm like, dude, have you ever heard of the word privacy? Like, motherfucker, man. Like, my God, man, and there's it's just so weird from beginning to end, man, and it works because it's Halloween night. These people think they're just random people in these costumes, and I just love it, man. From the moment of like Frankie, who is trying to like get with this woman, he's like, oh, big Frankie, oh, looking at his dick or something, to literally Woofy ended up, like this very femme, homosexual person who is literally just after like a few hours is literally like, where is my Woofy? Where is my Woofy? I want to know where my Woofy is. Literally, it's like, what insanity did I just enter into? What parallel fucking universe of the Universal Horror Monsters did I just come into? It's this weird horror sex comedy movie that literally makes no fucking sense whatsoever. And I sincerely mean that. This movie makes no goddamn sense. But for some reason, I love the comedy, I love the hijinks, I love the sexual antics, and I just thought it was a cool little, I guess I would say it's a cool little fish out of water movie of these horror monsters who don't really know the modern ways. They don't really know the sexual nature of people. It's these modern day people who think they're just dealing with regular people, and it's just the confusion and the hilarity of it all. It's friggin' nuts, man. I got to admit, man, I really just I just had a good time. I sat back, I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was fucking crazy and hilarious and just so oddball that I couldn't help but love the movie, man. Boy, this is one odd motherfucker, man. But in some ways, those are kind of some of the best ones, man. Really, honestly. I mean, you get here some really cool extras too. For something that's like a shot on video like cheap cheese fest, you'd think that they wouldn't put any effort into the extras, but they actually did. Crazy enough, man. I mean, you get, I'm Big Frankie, the actor who played Frankenstein, and honestly, I'm gonna tell you, man, this guy was so really honest about this movie. He thought, look, dude, we made this movie on the cheap. For 2 weeks, we filmed this thing. We were kind of a big deal to the locals. And honestly, they thought this was going to be sort of a big deal. But once they saw the movie, they're like, man, no one's ever going to see this. No one's ever going to care this movie ever exists. And he's sort of shocked that it still is alive to this day. You also have it wasn't me. The actor and FX artist, who I believe played Humper, if I'm not mistaken, he really talks about doing the makeup effects and how literally cheap of a budget it was, and how literally everybody on the cast literally had to participate in one way or another, whether it was, you were doing stuff, with the crew, and you were acting, and everybody had to pitch in somewhere. It was that cheap of a production. He just talks about that really great stuff. You also have you seen my Woofy? Jesus, the actor who played the gay man who fell in love with the Wolfman. And oh my God, man, this guy, looks back. Honestly, he looks back fondly on the movie. He looks back on his time making the flick, how he really enjoyed himself and enjoyed the time making it, and thought it was really kind of weird and bizarre and kind of fun. And God bless him, man. He's a good sport about it all. He really honestly is. He's really happy that this movie exists. Crazy enough. You also get the band with no name, and this is the band who sort of was playing during the Halloween party, and they just talk about coming up with the music for the film, and how it was cool to be a part of a movie. Didn't matter whether it was a cheap flick or not. Talked about being part of the crew and working on the film, and just how just nuts the film was, and how people were sleeping with one another, and it was just kind of really nutty, man. And you also have a music video with the same band who was in the movie, but this is not actually a music video for the movie. Just it was something that the band did years before they made the film, which was kind of nice, to be honest with you. Look, man, I'm gonna be real with you guys. I'm gonna be real here, man. This. I guess the best way to say it is it's kind of like the Monster Squad, if the Monster Squad was on Viagra. Like, I'm serious, man. Like, I'm like, what in the fucking hell is this, man? Um, this was a blind buy. Honestly, man, this was a complete and honest blind buy. I didn't know what the hell I was in for with this thing. I really didn't know. I knew people were excited about it, and I figured, what the hell, man? I love some really cheesy shit, so what the actual fuck? And honestly, look, I fully realize, okay, honestly, guys, I fully realize this movie is super cheap. This movie is extremely cheapo. It's got, some really crappy special effects, crappy makeup effects. The storyline is absolutely ridiculous and over the top and cheesy, and makes no fucking sense. There's this mad scientist, and he's gonna deal with time travel, and like what does that have to do with the fucking movie? Like, not a goddamn thing, but whatever, it's in there. And just like the bizarre shit in this movie, man, just really nuts. And I don't know, man. You know, I know a lot of people really don't like this movie, and I get it, and I understand it, but there's something about this movie that I really loved, man, and I wholeheartedly just thought this movie was just really fun. I did. I thought the movie was really fun, man, and there's something about the crazy hijinks in this movie that they're just not taking this movie seriously whatsoever. From the sort of cheesy music in this film that is making fun of the monsters, to even the opening credits of the movie. The opening credits are really funny and jokey, where they call the people on the crew by different names, and like, well, the guy who walked the dogs, and they end up putting his name there, like they know what this movie is. They know what it is, man, and they're not trying to hide that fact. They're just trying to have fun with the movie, and I really appreciate that. And I honestly appreciate, you know, I appreciate all the interviews from all of the actors and the people on the crew, because honestly, they still look back fondly on the movie. I mean, despite the movie being cheesy as shit and just really cheapo, they look back on it fondly because they got to make a movie. I mean, that's really what it's about. They literally are like, look, we filmed this thing in 2 weeks. The town really loved us. We were taking pictures. We were on the local news. And we were just having fun. We didn't think anyone was ever going to really see this thing or care. And the fact that it's lasted, they're just really happy about it. That people still give a damn after all these years, man. And I really appreciate that. Look, there are a lot of Universal Monster ripoffs out there. There's a shit ton of them. Um, where does Frankie and Pals rank? God damn, I have no idea, man. Maybe it's at the very bottom. Who the hell knows? But to me, this is just really great fun, man. It's just really great fun, and it does remind me of the old school days of watching something like USA Up All Night and literally discovering these really oddball, cheesy flicks that you would never find in any bargain basement video rental store to save your life. But for some reason, these you find them in the most oddball ways. And Frankie and Pals is one of these, man. Honestly, it is. I had a ball with this movie. I loved it. Every single second of this film, I loved. I was never bored for a single second. I had a huge smile on my face, and I was laughing the whole time. If you take this movie seriously in any way, shape, or form, then that's on you. But for me, I had a ball with this, man, and this is definitely staying in the collection, man. This is an odd one. I got some really oddball ones. I got some ones that would really sort of, what the fuck is this? Add this to the category, but in such a great way, man. I loved it, man. With Humper, to Frankenstein that can't control his own farts, to the mummy that has some weird little thing coming out of its stomach, like literally that. It's like, what is going on here? What the fuck is this? But it's madcap hilarity and B movie horror sexploitation, whatever the fuck it is, it's still so much fun. And honestly, if you guys want a cheesy fun night worth of cheesy cheapo goodness, man, Frankie and Pals is right up your alley, man. So good. Look at that. Cheapo, but God, I love them, man. Oh, I should actually do a double feature of like Monster Squad and Frankie and Pals. Man, what a wild night that would be. So good, man. So well worth it. Hope you guys get a chance to check this out. You may be disappointed. You might not be. I don't know, but I really loved it, man. Might not be a shocker to you guys. Frankie and Pals. And we are back in regular old clothes. No more of that Severin goodness, but I got a great haul from Severin, and I'm sure I will get more stuff from Severin in the future. But in the meantime, back to the regular old pickups, and the next one is from MVD Rewind Collection. I hadn't seen this in a long time, but man, so happy to finally get it in the collection, and that is none other than Split Second, baby. Look at this. Oh, such beautiful slipcover art. Fantastic, man. Look at that. Gorgeous. And then on the inside, oh, that beautiful art there with the monster in back of Rutger Hauer. He's in back of you, Rutger. Watch out. So good, man. So good. Man, I hadn't watched this movie in a hot goddamn minute, man. It had been a long time, but rewatching it was a real blast. And this movie takes place in the futuristic year of 2008. Yeah, the future, 2008. Yeah. Yeah, I love these movies that go out of their way to be like, well, the future, 1997 or 2008. I'm like, maybe we should have thought quite more back than 2008, but whatever. This is the future after all. Oh boy. And this futuristic cop played by Rutger Hauer is on the trail of this killer. And he has this sort of connection with the killer, kind of, sees what's going to happen. And it's sort of linked to the killer and is trying his best to pursue him, and it's basically this cat and mouse game between him and this killer and the complications of this and him trying to track this creature down. I really love this movie, man. This is a great goddamn flick, man. And I remember recently now watching it with the guys, them over here, and us chilling out and watching this Rutger Hauer flick. And we were just having a ball, man, because we're like, it reminded us, like, the futuristic world almost feels like kind of Blade Runner-esque. And it has this really cool monster here, which, I mean, the monster is basically, if you kind of look at it from the inside here, the monster kind of looks a little bit of a ripoff of, like, Alien in some ways. It kind of like, I'm surprised they didn't get sued off of this shit, man. I mean, kind of really looks very much like easily, like they took the design of Alien and just kind of slightly altered it a little bit. But I still love the alien with the darkness and the claws, and I thought it's a really cool design, even though you really don't get to see it fully until the very end. I think it's really impressive, man. I think Rutger Hauer is badass here. He's always really take charge and very gruff, and this time he's really good at it, and he has some good one-liners. He has some good jokes in there as well. He plays a good hard ass. And he does a really great job here. And also, I had completely forgotten. Seriously, I had completely forgotten that Kim Cattrall was in this. And I don't know, I just thought it was somebody else. I didn't think it was Kim Cattrall, man. And I was like, oh my god, her. And you even get to see Kim Cattrall a little naked. And you're like, oh, okay, man, Kim Cattrall, man. And, I thought she was great here. And boy, man, I forgot there was a time with Kim Cattrall in the 80s where it was like, she was like awesome. Like, you had her in Porky's and this movie and Big Trouble in Little China, and it was like all these really cool flicks that she was in, and it was like, oh man, yeah, the good old Kim Cattrall in the 80s. God damn, I miss that. So good, dude. Yeah, she's great, and it's a good old sci-fi action flick. It doesn't try to reinvent the wheel. It doesn't go for anything imaginative. It's kind of low budget, and it does the best with what it's given. But I thought the creature effects were really cool. I thought some of the blood and gore was quite well done. The acting is pretty decent here. The sci-fi is sort of a low-rent Blade Runner. But I don't mind low rent Blade Runner. I'm cool with it, man. And I thought they pulled it off quite well. And I just, when watching the movie and I was talking with the guys about this, I really love Rutger Hauer, man. I mean, there's something about Rutger Hauer when watching this movie. You're just like, he is just one of those really underrated badasses that you don't really talk about too much. And I think we should start having that conversation again. Like, Rutger Hauer needs to be higher on the badass list. And I don't think we really put him there as much. I think we definitely should, man. Movies like Split Second or The Hitcher, Blind Fury. I think there's a lot of really great stuff that he's on. Blade Runner as well, of course. He's done a lot of really great stuff, man. Hobo with a Shotgun. He's great, dude. So I love me some Rutger Hauer. And this is a really cool little sci-fi flick that is definitely in the cult classic status. I think a lot of people know about it, but not as many people as it should. It's pretty decent sci-fi, man, I do think. And you get here a lot of special features. You get a new audio commentary with a film historian and filmmaker talking about the movie, talking about the making of the flick and the intentions of the filmmakers and everything. Really great in-depth commentary. You get also a bunch of featurettes with various crew members talking about the making of it, whether it's the producers or the creature effects, makeup people, different aspects of the production and what they went through to make it, and the difficulties and the achievements. Really well done, man. There's so much really great content here, talking with everybody. It really goes to show you how much effort, even for a low budget sci-fi flick, they really put into this thing, and it's the effort's amazing, man. They also have the deleted scenes, theatrical trailer, and much more, man. I mean, give MVD Rewind a lot of credit, because this is a movie that definitely, I think, deserves a great collector's edition release, and it definitely got it. In fact, MVD announced this along with 101 Films in the UK. So us in the States got the MVD release, and the ones in the UK got the 101 Films release. Both are pretty much the same. I believe the same special features. I believe, all the same stuff here, just one in US and one in the UK. But regardless of whether you got it from 101 or MVD, it's a great goddamn flick, man. And Rutger Hauer is badass. The creature effects are kind of cool. And yes, it takes place in the distant land of 2008. But, for some reason, man, these sort of old school action sci-fi B movies kind of warm my heart, man. And it really does. And this one is a really great one from Rutger Hauer, man. So for me, I wholeheartedly love this thing, and I'm so glad to finally have it in the collection. I hadn't watched it in a long time, but man, revisiting it really made me see why I loved this in the first place, and I'm so glad to now have it part of the collection. Not half bad, man. Definitely look this up if you like your sci-fi action goodness. Pretty decent. Split second. And the last pickup that I got for the month is actually a horror pack limited edition Blu-ray of Witch's Brew. Yeah, look at that, baby. Oh, look at that great art, man. Witch's Brew. So nice, baby. Now, look, you're probably curious, because you're thinking, well, wait a second. Seth has never told us that he actually subscribes to Horror Pack. Well, here's the thing, I don't subscribe to Horror Pack. That's not something I've ever really thought about subscribing to. And then you're thinking to yourself, well, how did you actually get a limited edition Horror Pack Blu-ray? Did you get it through eBay? No, I didn't get it through eBay. Did you get it through a seller on Facebook? No, I didn't get it through a seller on Facebook. I actually got it through the director himself. I got it through Chris LaMartina, and actually, crazy enough, I actually met Chris LaMartina quite a few years ago. Him and his fiancée at the time, now his wife, were showing off at one of the horror conventions his latest movie, Call Girl of Cthulhu. And me and Bob went to the screening. We had a ball with the movie. We absolutely fucking loved it. And after the movie was over, we actually went up and actually talked to Chris and talked to his fiancée at the time, Melissa. And we had about a 5-10 minute conversation with them, and we really enjoyed talking with them. Very down to earth, really cool people. And I eventually ended up being friends with him on Facebook, and I've chatted with him a time or two, and when I heard this was out, and I heard this was a film that he directed, I actually contacted Chris, and I said, hey, do you have a copy? I would love a copy if you do. I paid him for it. So I didn't get this for free. I actually paid him. And he said, sure. So I paid him. He sent it out. And then I said, by the way, do you mind actually signing this for me? because I would love for you if you signed it. And he actually said yeah. So he actually signs it right here. It actually says drink up, which is actually really cool, man. And he also honestly sent me. He sort of has done this for me at times. Um, he actually drew this, and he said, "Thanks so much, brother. Enjoy." And he sort of drew that and gave it to me, and I thought that was really cool. And actually, that wasn't the only thing he actually did. He also ended up giving me. It's kind of wild. He gave me these sort of true crime trading cards, and also uh, gruesome greeting cards as well. I kind of don't want to open these up because I don't know if they're worth anything. I honestly have no idea, man. I kind of don't want to open them up if they're worth something. You guys kind of gotta let me know if they might be worth anything. I kind of don't want to mess with them. But that was really cool of him, man, to sign the Blu-ray, to send me some cool stuff, to draw that cool little image and send it to me. He's a really cool individual, man. And if you haven't seen some of his other flicks like WNUF Halloween Special and Call Girl of Cthulhu, man, watch that stuff because it really is awesome, man. And this movie is really cool, dude. It really is. It's basically about these guys who are micro brewers. They brew their own beer. It's a small brand, but they're trying to gain more traction with it. And they accidentally, through no fault of their own, sort of run over this cat, or what they assume is a cat. And they end up giving it to the lady who owns it. And what they don't realize is that she's a witch, and she is so pissed and upset that basically she ends up actually cursing the beer that they have. So anybody who drinks this beer, anybody at all, horrible things are gonna happen to them, horrible deaths, and it's just basically these guys trying to right the wrong of this witch, trying to track everyone who's drank the beer, and trying to survive all of the crazy crap and hijinks that happen when you drink messed up cursed beer. They say alcohol kills you, but this is a whole new thing, guys. So, look, man, I gotta be real with you, man. I I love a really good indie sort of horror comedy flick. I really do, man. And this is right up my alley. It really is. Is it on the slightly cheap side? Yes, I'll fully admit that. But you want to know what, man? I think that's, as I've said before so many times, that's, I think, the charm of this in a lot of ways, is that. Because there's something about, rubber makeup effects. There's something about, a cheapo werewolf costume that, kind of is like, okay, yeah, it doesn't look the greatest, but I appreciate the effort, man. And I thought some of the deaths were really cool. Whether it was somebody literally shitting their guts out, somebody literally turning into a werewolf, people getting their throats slashed at, and heads exploding, and literally somebody eating somebody else, like literally, whatever they could come up with, some insane deaths, they went there, man. And I think, to me, I appreciated the acting, I appreciated the story, I appreciated the special effects. It's over the top, it's ridiculous, and I loved every single second of it, guys, honestly, because this is just balls out ridiculous craziness. But again, there's something fun about the movie. There's something kind of heartwarming. The fact that these are young filmmakers who love movies, who love horror flicks, who love cinema, and it's their passion that is really truly shining through, which I think is something that I truly appreciate, because For me, sometimes you watch these filmmakers, these older filmmakers, and you watch some of their later stuff, and you realize maybe they've lost the zest for filmmaking, that they're not what they once were. And then you look at a movie like Witch's Brew, and you're like, okay, maybe they don't have tens of millions of dollars to go about doing these special effects and making this big budget horror comedy like they want to, but you can see the passion that they have, and you can see how everybody came together to want to make something really special. And it just feels like when you're watching this movie that everybody had a fun time making this movie, down to all of the actors, anybody on the crew. It just felt like there was a cool sort of vibe. And yes, it's work, but you can still have fun with it. And this felt like pure fun, man. I think the characters are likable. I think they're quirky. Like I said, the blood and gore effects are cheesy but really fun. I think the practical effects are really cool, man. And and I just really like even like the beer. The beer is called Slacker Lager, which I think is really fun, man. I like just sort of like evil, devious witches, cursed beer, crazy characters. Like something about it just really warms my heart, man. And I thought it was really fun. I really did, dude. I thought it was great. And, you know, I can't say that I've really ever seen many movies that have witches cursing beer and the beer killing people. Can't say I've seen that a lot, so it's quite a unique movie in that case. And I have to admit that, you know, there is certain indie filmmakers out there that may never get the big budgets, may never, get the opportunities that some of these other filmmakers get. But maybe they don't need to. Maybe maybe these filmmakers are just in it for the passion, and they're just in it for the love. And I think when I see Chris's work, whether it's, like I said, the WNUF Halloween special, or Call Girl of Cthulhu, or now Witch's Brew, seeing those movies, I see a guy that is just passionate about movies in general and passionate about filmmaking. And it doesn't matter whether he has $1 million or whether he has $10. He's gonna make the most out of what he can. And this is another proof positive of, if you have a passion for filmmaking, if you have a love for movies, then I think you're willing to make a fun piece of art. And I think he really did, man. It's a crazy, wild experience, but a really fun one, and I really loved it. You get a great audio commentary here. You get a drinking game, a behind-the-scenes featurette, theatrical trailers, and I got to admit that the behind-the-scenes featurette, you really get to see the love that these people have making a movie and the passion that they have, and the commentary is really great, very fun as well. Chris goes out of his way to make really great movies, and he's making the WNUF Halloween sequel, which I cannot wait for that to come out. He's a great filmmaker. He's a great, nice guy, and if you ever get a chance to watch his movies, I think the one thing you're gonna get out of them is that they're super fun, man. Really great. Hope you guys enjoy it. So good. Witches and crazy, horrific beer. Gotta love it. Witch's Brew. Alright, everybody, that'll do it for the Blu-ray pick-up video for August of 2020. And wow, this was a really great month, man. By far, I gotta tell ya, man, the really great media that I picked up this time around was amazing, man. Some really great limited edition love, some really weird oddball titles. August ended up being quite good for me, not gonna lie, man. And I hope it was good for you. Definitely let me know what you guys picked up. I am dying to know what you did. And now we are on to September's pickups. And my God, man. You thought August was good. Boy, you ain't seen nothing yet, man, because September is going to be so great. Uh, I'll just kind of give you guys a hint of what I'm going to have with September. More Severin, Code Red, Scream Factory, uh, Arrow Video, Out of Print Love, Limited Edition, Collector's Editions, Retro Titles, Shot on Video Goodness, some new companies that I was searching for and found some cool stuff as well. Really unique, oddball horror titles. Boy, it's gonna be unique, man. It's gonna be really great and just as good as this month, if not better. So strap yourselves in, guys, because that will be coming very soon, man. You guys are gonna love it. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, definitely give it the thumbs up. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. Check out the other Blu-ray pickup videos that I've done. The Blu-ray DVD Tuesday videos I do every single week. The theatrical movie reviews with my friends. Movie hunting videos like mega Dollar Tree movie hunting experiences, which I love doing. Also, the live streams that I've done for you guys, and so much more. If you love movies and physical media, hit subscribe and become a part of the Film Fan Nation. I want to thank my wonderful subscribers out there. You guys are absolutely amazing. The great comments, the wonderful feedback, going out of your way to watch the videos fully, engage with me, liking them. I really appreciate it, guys. As I've said before so many times, and I mean it, you guys are some of the best subscribers on the internet, on YouTube, and I just love you guys. You guys give me some great feedback and love, and I hope I give you love right back, man. So thank you so much. So if you like how I talk about movies and physical media, then definitely hit subscribe and keep up to date with everything I'm doing through Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Film Fan 108. Keep up to date with everything I'm doing, plus special pictures and videos I do from time to time on social media as well. Alright, guys, this was a fantastic month's worth of media, and trust me, there's so much more to come. Definitely stay tuned. Hope you guys keep on picking up some cool titles, and I will see you back next time for a brand new Blu-ray pickup video. Take care, everybody, and happy hunting.